Despite my dog's sabotage, the episode will go on.
Hey, thanks for joining Escape With Me Book Club. Escape with me, Lizzie Sawyer.
And me, Sam Reiner.
Into our most recent read. Come with us as we evade reality and go into detail about a new book. We're going to be covering it from beginning to end, so remember, there will be spoilers.
Today we are going to King's Abbot, England. Originally published in 1926, Hercule Poirot does what all detectives seem to do, attempt to retire only to find themselves in the middle of another mystery. This time, a good friend of Hercule's meets his unfortunate end soon after the man's secret love is found dead. Poirot steps up to the plate to find his friend's killer, but soon finds that everyone related to the case has something to hide. Tearing through the webs of lies and deception, will Hercule solve the murder before the police arrest the wrong person?
It's a Hercule Poirot book, so he probably will.
So this was an everybody pick. This has been our most requested episode by everyone. You, our listeners, everybody.
Yeah, you had to read this. It was completely necessary. The downside is I hyped this book up so much that you guessed the ending before you even read it.
Yes, and so in the end, technically, Lizzie isn't mad at me.
No, I'm just disappointed.
So in a weird way, I have both guessed the ending and not made Lizzie mad at me. So I win.
I don't know if that's winning, because you didn't really get the fun surprise.
It was a fun surprise. I guessed it. That's fun.
But you guessed the ending. No.
That's fun. That's the whole point, is trying to guess the ending, and then it's cool when you can do it. This is why I am the one who plans our Secret Santas now, because I kept guessing my Secret Santa, and everyone was mad at me. Actually, that's why we now use Elfster, so nobody knows. So it's an adult age level, but it does have mention of death, suicide, and drug use, so if you're not for that, don't do it. To judge a book by its cover, we've kind of talked about this previously, but I don't hate the cover, but I have the, kind of like a minimalist covers that they've been doing for all of them.
We both do.
And so normally I really like it, but
this time it's just a telephone. And I get why they did a telephone. I get it, because that's the bit that's the mystery through almost all of it until near the end.
But it's also just a telephone.
Yeah, it's just a telephone. And I personally didn't get anything out of that. I was like, cool, it's a murder. Let's get into it.
Yeah, all I could think is maybe someone died while on the phone. And it was the only reason I thought that was because the phone is off the hook. And so I was like, oh, that's mysterious. But no. I mean, it's phone related, but not even really that type of phone, I don't think. Unless that's Dr. Shepard's phone.
Maybe Dr. Shepard's phone. He got the call and he left in a rush, so maybe he left it off the hook.
Maybe that's what it was. But yeah, it's very basic. It's not like, and then there was none, and there was a skull in the water, or any of the other ones, really. Even Hercule Poirot's Christmas had bloody footprints across snow. That was something, at least.
Oh well.
Oh well. This is a phone. It was phone related. It does the job. I'm just a little sad because this is apparently really, really popular, one of her novels, and it kind of has a very nondescript cover. So if somebody random was picking it up, they might not realize how awesome the book is.
It is quite the awesome book.
That was a very minor nitpick.
Yep.
It's not even of the book or her, it's just the publishing company now. Guys, come on, step it up. But everybody has a secret in this book. And I don't know why I feel like this, because normally she has like 8 to 12 characters, and that's what she has this time. I think she has 8 main suspects, and then there are a couple of side characters that aren't really suspects.
There's the butler, and the niece, and the aunt, and the assistant, and the friend, and the not son-in-law.
Nephew.
The adopted son.
The stepson.
And the strange person that was outside. And I think that's it.
Yeah. Honestly, I would include Miss Ferris, because up until a point, I was half convinced that she faked her death.
Okay, all right.
So this was my train thought with Miss Ferris. She faked her death. The letter was sent to Roger. He stopped reading because it was actually her telling him off. The beginning of it was a normal letter, so in case anyone was reading it, they'd be like, oh, okay, normal letter, blah, blah, blah. But actually it was telling him off, and Roger was the one blackmailing her, and he just made up the story, and so she faked her death to kill him.
Yeah, but that's not what happens.
That's not what happened.
But if we count her, that gives us 8 suspects.
Yeah. I don't know why it feels like less, and maybe it just feels like less because it's structured like everybody has a secret, and once they share their secret, they're kind of done in this suspicious way.
I think it's because the narrator is actually someone that's there versus a third person narrator. So it's all from Dr. Shepard's point of view.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's definitely something that lends credence more. I think I prefer the third person of Hercule Poirot's Christmas, or of And Then There Was None, because you get to spend time with each of the characters separately, and you get to see how different ones interact with each other, and you get a lot more of the characters. characters.
I can see that.
Versus just hearing the narration from Dr. Shepard. And it feels very biased because you're a person. Duh, you're biased.
It is very biased.
Where I feel like when it's third person, you have everyone's biases. So you have less biases in general.
It's really fun rereading this because you read a lot more into the meanings of a lot of the things that the people do.
Oh my goodness. I really was going to ask you, was it more fun reading the second time through?
Yes. Yeah, it's like when you watch a movie where a lot of the characters die. Sleepy Hollow, for instance. I enjoy watching that movie because I can be like, you die, and you also die, and you get your face bitten off. So many characters die in that movie. Or like zombie movies, you know, like you die, and you die. But a little bit more in depth than that because it's like, oh, you did this because of that there. Or, oh, you did this because you climbed through a window. Or, you liar, you never actually went into that room. Things like that.
Yeah, because I was going through, and mainly when I got to the end, because up until this point, I had read and then there was none before you had. And so it was really fun for me going through. It was like the third time I'd read it. But it was really fun rereading it and piecing things together on the back end, knowing who did it and being able to see things. And so I was wondering if you had fun doing the opposite this time, knowing I was reading it for the first time, even though I did technically guess before I started. And I was like, what's a crazy thing she could do? Even though I guessed that beforehand, was it still kind of fun for you?
No, you guessed it. It stopped being fun when you guessed it.
I'm so sorry. It was really everyone being like, this is such a crazy mystery that I was like, okay, putting my thoughts on. She has made the impossible happen so many times. She has made the inspector do it. Who could it be? And then I jokingly guessed something. And then halfway through the book, I was like, wait a second. I think this is actually it. I am so sorry.
No, you're not. Not really.
I'm not, but I'm sorry to have diminished your joy.
You diminished my joy.
I would have liked your joy to have stayed intact. I don't regret guessing it before I even read it because that just makes me sound cool. I'm so smart, guys.
Massive eye roll.
Mrs. Ferris, or sorry, Mrs. Ferris? Are you forever Mrs. Ferris? Or do you go back to Miss if you're a widow?
I have no idea.
I don't know. Anyway, Widow Ferris.
Ferris.
Bueller. Sorry, we're saying that so much. She poisoned her husband, and it starts off the book kind of like, oh, did she? Didn't she? But we don't even get to the third of the way through the book before it's like, yeah, she totally did it. Correct. She did poison her husband.
Yeah, because her and Aykroyd, they fall in love. And he's like, marry me. And she's like, no. And he's like, marry me. And she's like, no. And he's like, marry me. She's like, okay, but I have to tell you about this thing that I did, which was that she killed her previous husband.
I think the funnier thing of all this is every time someone hears it, they're like, whoa, you shouldn't murder people. But if you were going to, Ashley Ferris is the person to do it too. There was a complete apathy.
Oh yeah, he was an awful human being.
They were all like, I get it. Not good to do that, but I get it.
Yeah, okay, that checks out. All right.
If I was married to him, I'd do the same thing.
No shade, no shade.
I just love that the characters went out of their way to be like, I get it. I see this. So the next one is Parker.
The butler. The butler did it, obviously, 100%.
A part of me was like, why are we just throwing this character out? Because in the very beginning, the first police are like, Parker did it. It's so obvious. Parker did it.
And then the next police come and they're like, no, you're a moron. This is our case now. It was clearly the stepson.
And everyone just kind of agrees, yeah, Parker didn't do it. But you get to learn more about Parker. And everyone's like, oh, he was blackmailing Mrs. Ferris, which is why they think Roger was killed, is because he found out who blackmailed her.
But he wasn't blackmailing Mrs. Ferris. He blackmailed his previous employer.
Yeah, he did the exact same thing to his previous employer, who was totally like, yep, I'm a terrible person. I blackmailed him till he was dead. And I was going to try to do it again here. But he died before I can do that, so I get money.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It just feels like the book throws away Parker. And I'm just sitting here like, we're just going to let all of that slide? Is no one going to make a note in his file? Like, hey, next person that hires him, he has a history of blackmail? Like, we're just going to let that walk.
I mean, the next person that's in charge of his recommendation letter is Miss Aykroyd, so...
But does she know? Does everyone know? Because I felt like it was just a very specific amount of people.
I have no idea. him. No clue.
Dr. Shepard knows, and obviously Hercule knows. And I think the police know, but they never were like, hey, everyone.
By the way, Miss Ackroyd, you probably should fire this man and not give him a letter of recommendation.
Yeah, and if it falls to Ralph, there's no way Ralph knows. He comes in at the very end. There's no way Ralph knows about that.
I mean, maybe Hercule tells him. We don't know.
Fingers crossed for that ending.
The book just kind of stops, so...
It really does. I mean, granted, it makes sense given, but it does.
Yeah.
So Parker was always still in the back of my mind because I'm like, everyone has just thrown this person away. I'm so confused. You're a horrible person. Then we have Flora and by extension Blunt because as soon as they both get introduced, they're never away from each other. So Flora's secret is that she stole money from her uncle on the night that he was murdered. And so when she was coming down the stairs, Parker was coming in to give Roger drinks. And the way the layout is, when she was coming down the stairs aren't on the way to the office. And so she really quickly ran to the office and pretended she was coming out of the room when Parker arrived. And she was like, oh, he doesn't want to see anybody, bye. To cover up the fact that she just stole 40 pounds, which in that time, that's a lot of money. Jeez. But anyway.
Yeah, I think he had like 100 pulled out total.
Yes. And he had 60 left over. And that's why they were like, 40 pounds. And they were suspicious at first that it was related to this other dude with drugs. But no, they found out it was Flora. And I don't know if Flora ever says what she bought with it or what she needed it for.
I don't think she does. I mean, the whole thing with her and her mom is he has money and we're not allowed to use it.
Yeah, her mom's big thing is that they're not in luxury. They're only content. And she's against that, even though he seems like the guy that the only reason he's rich is because he was kind of penny pinching. I don't know anything about his wealth.
He's frugal.
He's very frugal, and it cramped the mom style. I don't know on Flora. I guess she bought clothes, or a part of me wondered, because this never got explored, I was kind of wondering if she was stealing money and stashing it away so she could leave by herself and be independent.
That would be my guess. She wanted freedom bad, which I mean, with a mom like that.
Yeah. And also the uncle like that, because she was being forced to marry Ralph, and I think he told her.
Yeah, they couldn't get money from the will if they didn't get married.
Yeah, but I think Ralph told her that he was married, and so they couldn't get married for real. It wasn't possible for them to get married because he was already married. And so I feel like she was probably stealing money to stash it away to be able to leave, because with an uncle who's like, I want you to marry my stepson, and then a mom who's really obviously scheming just to find more money. Because as soon as she gets that lump sum from the will, she is cloud nine. This is what she wanted. She is happy as a clam. She's going to go start her life. She got the lump sum, which I'm glad for her. She seems like a really nice person overall. I don't have too many qualms with Flora, especially with this imaginary world I've painted where she's just stealing money so she can be independent. I'm all for that. But it kind of negates the fact that Blunt, his secret, that is he's in love with Flora. And so they get engaged almost immediately. So I'm pretty sure he would have had enough money for her. But hey, now she has this lump sum too. So she has money of her own. I mean, it doesn't hurt. Not totally against it, but so that was just an added bonus. But yeah, that's kind of the end for Blunt. And I could tell they made it really obvious, even from the first interaction where it was like, oh, he's a known woman hater, but he's being so nice to Flora. I wonder what that means. So actually, I was betting it was either he was in love with her or Flora was his daughter. One or the other. There was no in between. How crazy would have that have been? That plot twist. If it hadn't been a simple, oh, I'm in love with her, I'm just worried about the age gap. What if Blunt had been her father?
That would have been nuts.
Because Blunt is an old-time friend of Roger Ackroyd, and Mrs. Ackroyd has been living in Canada for a really long time, but it didn't say if they moved to Canada before or after Flora. It could have been she had an affair with Blunt, had this child, and then they moved to Canada because Mr. Ackroyd was like, no, I'm going to separate you.
Would have been nuts.
That's not what happened, but that would have been nuts. This is what Agatha Christie has conditioned me to do. Everybody has illegitimate children. Everyone is murderers. They're all suspicious.
Evil is lemons.
Every villain is lemons.
There we go. Thank you.
So yeah, his was surprisingly wholesome. Around then is when they found the wedding ring. I guess I can skip ahead to Ursula. I really like what Agatha did with the wedding ring, because she gave us the wedding ring and it was suspicious. But then Dr. Shepard goes home and plays mahjong with his sister and 2 other people.
Random people.
Yeah. And I'm once again reminded I have no idea how to play mahjong because none of what they said made sense to me. But I kind of got an idea of what was happening. But they go home, he plays mahjong, and then they speculate about the ring. And it's really clever because what she's doing is giving you red herrings without you realizing that she's basically closing off your creative thinking. By giving you these 3 possibilities, she has basically made your mind conditioned to go, okay, which one of these is right, instead of leaving it open to where you could possibly come up with the solution yourself. I thought that was really clever. That's a little bit of psychology there.
Hey, just real quick. How to play Mahjong. Basic game is played with 4 players. There are variants with 3 players. Component. Basic game has 136 tiles, including 36 characters, 36 bamboos, and 36 circles, which are the suits. These are in turn divided into 4 sets of numbers, 1 to 9 in each suit. There are also 16 wind tiles, 12 dragon tiles. Many of these also include 8 bonus tiles with flowers and 4 seasons, but these are not needed in the basic game. Goal of the game is to get a mahjong, which consists of getting all 14 of your tiles into its 4 sets and 1 pair. A pair is 2 identical tiles.
So it's like poker.
A set can either be a pung, which is 3 identical tiles, or a chow, which is a run of 3 consecutive numbers in the same suit. A single tile cannot be used in 2 sets at once.
So it's like poker, but tiles.
Without betting and...
more turns, yeah.
Let me see. How does the setup look like?
I know what the setup looks like, only because I've seen it on TV shows.
I want to know how the middle is set up.
Because I always thought Mahjong, because I played it on the computer, and when you play it on the computer or on your phone, it's just you match tiles in different setups to try to get rid of all of them. And so it's basically this really hardcore version of concentration.
I think it's a little less complicated than poker. Actually, it's a lot less complicated than poker, because with poker, there's so many different combos of cards that you can use, and one outweighs another versus another, whereas this is you either get a pung or a chow.
Yeah. But they were different mahjongs, and then there were points. And then I would need to sit down and play it.
It depends on what suit you have, and it's added up at the end. If you wanted to compare it to a game, I would compare it more to
Hearts?
Rummy.
Oh, okay. I don't know how to play that either. I need to sit down and learn these card games because I like card games and I know a lot of card games, but there are certain ones that I don't know. I don't know Bridge. I don't know Rummy.
You want to learn how to play Yahtzee? Yahtzee's fun.
Yahtzee's with dice.
It is with dice.
I know how to play Yahtzee.
My family plays Rummy. We also play Yahtzee. That is where my brain went. Yahtzee's fun.
Where were we?
I was looking up the rules to Mahjong.
We can just skip over to Mrs. Ackroyd is a terrible person.
Yeah, Mrs. Ackroyd is a terrible person.
She's forcing her daughter to marry someone just so she can get money.
She's also in massive debt.
Yeah. I honestly really like how Roger set up the will because he not only granted Flora her freedom, but he also didn't reward Mrs. Ackroyd for her bad behavior because she gets an allowance. And so instead of this huge lump sum that she can immediately spend, and I also think it's more practical for her because Flora has a chance of marrying someone and having money stability, and so this is just to get her started, versus the mom where she's probably not going to get married again, and so she needs something consistent that she can pay her bills to. So it's set up in an allowance so she can't be extravagant. I like that. It was responsible and a little petty, and I love it. I also don't remember if they talk about how much did Ralph get anything?
Yes, I think. I don't remember.
Because I can't remember. I thought... Did Dr. Shepard go to the will reading, or did he just hear about it secondhand?
He just heard about secondhand.
Okay, so I don't know what Ralph got. I guess the estate and stuff. So yeah, Mrs. Ackroyd's a terrible person. And the entire time, she's talking to Dr. Shepard. Oh, won't you tell Hercule that I'm not a bad person? Just, frame it exactly how I want you to frame things. Come on. Manipulation.
Tell him I'm not a bad person. I'm just in, serious crippling debt.
Because I can't stop spending. But it's actually Roger's fault for not spending more money. Honey.
But I'm not the bad guy.
Honey, you need to be reasonable.
No.
Oh my God. gosh, there are a lot of R names. There's Roger, Ralph, Miss Russell, and Raymond.
Oh yeah, the housekeeper. I don't know if I mentioned the housekeeper earlier. Housekeeper's also a suspect.
Let's see.
Housekeeper's not a terrible person though.
Sorry, it's Gregory Raymond, but everyone calls him Raymond, so that counts. Oh, and there's also Inspector Raglan, and then Richard Follett, who was Ursula's previous employer.
Who pretended to be Ursula's previous employer. He never actually worked for her.
Jeez, there's a lot of C names too. Charles Kent, Clara, Colonel Carter, Colin McDonald. I mean, none of these are the main characters, so we don't notice as much. Mrs. Cooper, Cecil Ackroyd, and Carolyn Shepard. Goodness. So we have a lot of R's, we have a lot of C's. So Raymond is so non-entity. He shows up, he doesn't take the murder seriously, he takes it in stride, and he just is chill the entire time. And then Hercule's like, all of you have a secret. When he gathers all the suspects together, and he's just like, everyone in this room has a secret. Raymond the next day walks up to him and is like, hey, I was $500 in the hole for gambling bits. I got $500 from Roger's will. I don't want you to think I murdered him for it. It just kind of worked out. And then he walks off.
He's like, I didn't want to say this in front of everybody else, understandably, but I have a problem. It's called gambling.
Not only does he walk out of the room, he walks off the suspect list, I feel like. No one pays attention to him again at all.
You're like, which guy? That guy? Oh, yeah, him.
Yeah, last time we talked about it, you forgot about him. That says something. When a main suspect, you just forget he existed. He comes, he goes.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't do much.
He doesn't. And I think that's one of the reasons some of these suspects get thrown away when their secret gets figured out. So I never felt like Parker was a real suspect. I never felt like Blunt was a real suspect. And I never felt like Raymond was a real suspect. And I never really felt like Ursula was a real suspect. Like, we'll get to her in a minute, but I never felt like she was a suspect either. And so it just, I don't know. And then, of course, the inspector was like, oh, Ralph did it. So you know Ralph didn't do it. The police can't be right. What's the point of having a detective then?
Right.
So there are a lot of suspects, but a lot of them don't feel like suspects. So Ursula is married to Ralph, and that's a no-no because she was a servant in Roger Ackroyd's house. And the night of the murder, she actually tells Roger that she's married to Ralph because she heard about Ralph and Flora's engagement being announced, which Ursula deserves better.
She does.
I know in Station, Ursula was poor, Ralph is wealthy, especially now. So I get in Station, but in emotional and intellectual levels, Ursula deserves better. Ralph is a coward. And you find out he's just been hiding in this mental institution because someone told him to, and he was like, yep, that sounds like a good thing. I'm gonna leave my wife to have no idea where I am, but I'm gonna go hide. Come on. Really? Nothing Ralph has done has endeared me. And I feel like everyone also is always like, yep, Ralph is a crazy one, but we know him, so he's a good guy. And that never comes across very positively for him either.
Nope.
Ursula deserves better.
She super does.
I know couple counseling doesn't exist, but it's like, I don't even know what to do here because Ursula threw her wedding ring into the lake and she told Roger about them, but I also don't know if they actually ever fixed the fight.
Yeah.
Are we good? I know Roger died was convenient for them, but I don't know. That's another thing that doesn't get resolved because the book ends very suddenly after we find out who did it.
Yup.
I think within 3 pages of finding out who did it. So that storyline was actually just kind of sad. It was just sad. Miss Russell. I think Miss Russell had the most interesting plot line. Subplot.
Yeah, she did. That poor woman.
Plotline. I don't know. One or the other. Yeah. But at the same time, she enables her son.
I mean, she felt guilty. It's that abandonment guilt.
Yeah. Because, okay, so it's really convoluted, but Miss Russell had a son. She was not married. And so the son went to an orphanage? Am I remembering this right?
I have no idea. But she left him in Canada. And he somehow found out that she's his mother.
Yeah. But by that point, he had gone down a dark route and drug use and whatnot. Specifically, heroin.
The good stuff. Just kidding. Don't do drugs, kids.
Don't do heroin.
Don't do drugs.
Yeah. So he finds out about her and he's basically been blackmailing her and she feels guilty for leaving him and she's like, oh, that's what caused him to go down this route. But I don't know, man. He does not want to change. And what she's doing now is actually just enabling the bad things to continue to happen. It's just a sad, sad subplot when you sit down. But unraveling it was probably the most interesting out of all of them because Dr. Shepard runs into this random dude leaving leaving Roger's house. And so they're like, oh, maybe he's the one who killed Roger because he was there on the night of the murder. And then they track him down in London, of all places. And Hercule goes to meet him, and they're like, oh, his name is Charles Kent. And Hercule is like, oh, are you from Kent? And he says yes. And then Hercule is like, I know all about you that I ever need to know, as he does.
Yeah.
But you eventually come to find out he named himself that because Kent, Charles Kent. And there's one point where they figure out he has something to do with heroin. Or is it cocaine? Have I been saying heroin this whole time?
It's heroin.
It is heroin? Okay, good.
It is heroin.
Sorry, I just remembered the dove thing, and I was like, that's smart cocaine. But anyway, the drug paraphernalia aside, which that was a fun fact I did not know about the feather. Anyway, if you know, you know. But there's a point where it's like, oh, maybe somebody stole the $40 from Roger to buy drugs, and that's why the money was missing. And then you find out the Flora thing. You're like, oh, is she trying to buy drugs? Is she a drug addict? And then you find out actually Miss Russell was meeting someone and Ursula was meeting someone. And there was one point where I thought everybody was showing up at the same time, but Hercule was like, nah, 2 separate meetings. So I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. And you find out that no, it was Miss Russell giving him money because that's her kid and she's trying to help now, but it's bad. I feel like that's the most detective work I did, was trying to figure out who Charles Kent had any relations to, though.
Charles Kent, who are you? Wouldn't you like to know?
What is happening? There was a portion where I thought he was fake, like he didn't exist or something. I don't know.
He doesn't. He is fake.
That was about the halfway point.
He's not real.
He is fake. And the only reason I thought of that, is there anything else you want to talk about any of the other suspects? Because I think we could talk about who done it.
Nah, go ahead.
I will slip this in. A little part of me wondered if Carolyn did it. I was like, that would have been crazy.
It would have been crazy.
No, she didn't do it. But the reason Lizzie's disappointed in me is because going in, I was like, you know what the craziest thing would be? Because as we mentioned, this is the first book I've read from her where it's a single narrator. And she's done them before this and after this of having a single narrator. But this was the first time I had read one. And so I read a couple of pages and I was like, you know what would be crazy? The narrator did it. And he did.
And I was like, what? No. I mean, no. That's no. Yeah.
And so, like I said, I got to the halfway point and I just realized how much of his stuff, if he was an unreliable narrator, how much of his stuff I was, is this even real? Is this actually happening? And then Hercule pulls out this document and is like, oh, you've been writing down everything. And I was like, oh, yes, James Shepherd, I am calling you out. This is suspicious. And so I was pretty solid at that point that it was him. And so that's why I was wondering things like, was Charles Kent real? Dr. Shepherd was the only person that saw him, and he turned out to be real. But there are things where I was like, this is suspicious. We only have his word on everything. And it took me way too long. Like, I knew he did it, but it took me way too long to realize. Okay, so that was the weird thing. I thought he did it, but I didn't think he blackmailed Miss Ferris.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know why. That was such a simple solution, but I thought somebody else did that because I was still trusting him as a narrator. So that scene with Roger, I thought that was accurate. And then I was like, oh, he went to kill him later. He didn't read out the rest of the note. It's Occam's razor. It was simpler for Dr. Shepherd to be the one blackmailing, because he's the one who saw Ashley Ferris's body after he died.
Yes.
Also, his name is James. I'm married to a murderer.
You're married to a murderer.
But yeah, and it gets to the end, and eventually Hercule is like, I know you did it, dude. So I could either tell the police tomorrow, or you can go to the Forever Sleepsies place.
It's your choice, man.
And Dr. Shepherd's like, you know what? That sounds good.
And he only suggests going to the Forever Sleepsies place for his sister's honor.
What a weird time. There's a little part of me that's confused why Dr. Shepherd wrote that, because he writes the entire thing, like he writes the book like it's his last will and testament, sort of. And so I was a little confused why he was like, yep, let me write down that I totally did the thing. All right, put that somewhere. I'll publish this into a book. And at the end, he's like, I wrote this because I wanted to outsmart Hercule, but he outsmarted me. I was like, this is actually a little bit weird. Maybe guilty conscience of some sort, but that was weird. But yeah, it was good. good. I think that was really good. It came to the fact that Dr. Shepard did it because he was blackmailing Mrs. Ferris because he's the doctor in the town, so he saw Ashley Ferris's body, and so he knew she poisoned, and he had been milking her dry this entire time. And then she wrote that letter to Roger expressing who her blackmailer was. I don't understand why Miss Ferris needed to game over herself. That's the only thing I'm at the end and I'm stuck at. I don't know why she had, I mean, it started the mystery for sure, but I didn't really understand why she needed to game over herself for it to all happen, but that's beside the point.
I think it was partly because, and they mentioned this near the beginning, when Aykroyd first mentions to Shepard that she offed her husband, Shepard makes it very clear that Aykroyd was very shocked and disgusted at the fact that she'd killed her previous husband. And if he'd had a similar reaction when she told him, she may have thought there was absolutely no future there and that he was definitely going to oust her, which may have contributed to it.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, writes this letter. At some point, I guess... Oh. What I really liked was the dictaphone subplot. Because this whole time, they're like, oh, this chair has been pushed forward. Why has this chair been pushed forward in the crime scene? It makes no sense. And I thought maybe it was moved there to hang something from the ceiling or do something with the ceiling. But then I thought, they didn't really have false ceilings, so that wouldn't really make sense. And so I was stuck on that. And then at the end, for Hercule to be like, remember how Raymond was talking about dictaphones? He had one! And Shepard stole it to cover up.
I mean, he hadn't originally stole it. He had it to begin with because Aykroyd was like, can you fix this for me? It's not working right. And Shepard was like, yeah, I can do that. And then brought it in to have it play voices after he killed the dude. So, I mean, it was already in his possession.
I take it back. It wasn't Hercule finding the notes that cemented it for me. As soon as Dr. Shepard showed propensity for mechanics, clearly you did it.
It was you!
Every time someone knows how mechanics works, they've invented a killing machine of some sort or something. You did it. You're too competent. Because that was the thing. This entire time they've been... Sorry, we haven't even talked about the phone call.
No, we haven't.
Even though that's what's on the front of the book. So Dr. Shepard gets a phone call from someone that's like, oh, Roger Ackroyd's been murdered.
Well, they call and it's like, yo, it's Parker. Mr. Ackroyd's been murdered. Come quickly.
And then Parker's confused because he's like, I didn't make this phone call. And then they trace the phone call and it's coming from the train station. And they're like, why the heck would they do it? Which immediately I was like, duh, establish time. They need people to get over to establish time because somebody has an alibi that would only work if that had happened. So it was kind of true, but also kind of not true because it was to establish something, but it was to establish an alibi for Dr. Shepard because actually what he had done is had a patient earlier that day that was heading toward London to go on a boat to America. And he was like, hey, when you get to the train station, could you give me a quick ring? That would be awesome. So he does that, and then Dr. Shepard's like, oh my gosh, somebody told me he's been murdered. And so that kind of took suspicion away from him. So he could be one of the first people in the room so he can get the dictaphone, which he was hiding with the chair by pushing it forward. So when you walk in the door, you don't see the dictaphone.
Dun dun dun.
Because that was being used to make it seem like Roger Ackroyd was alive after Dr. Shepard left.
Dun dun dun.
By someone was on the porch and heard them and they're like, oh, they're still alive. And then the weapon he used, which it makes sense specifically why Dr. Shepard used this weapon. Because up until that point, I was like, why are they using this weapon? It's highly traceable to that house. Just bring your own. But he used a special silver dagger from a table and used that as the murder weapon to make everybody look suspicious because anyone in the house could have gotten that. And he established, hey, it wasn't in the cabinet. And because of the phone call, he doesn't look suspicious. So he looks credible. And so he can be like, oh, it was either Miss Russell or Flora or Blunt. It's very well thought out.
Yes, it was.
I must applaud Dr. Shepard on that. It was very, very well thought out. I'm honestly tired explaining it. I'm like, oh, need to catch my breath. And so that's why I think even though I guessed who done it, it wasn't unfun to read. Obviously, I had other suspicions. There were other people that could have done it. And then about, I don't know, the halfway point, 2/3, the whole thing with, oh, I'm good at mechanics. And I'm like, yeah, it's you.
He totally did it.
But I didn't get all of his plan. Like, I didn't understand the chair. The dictaphone was a fun throw in at the end that I didn't understand. The whole Ralph thing, which was also really smart because Dr. Shepard was the one who told Ralph to pretend to be an inpatient somewhere. So he was mysteriously vanished so no one could ask him questions. And so he looked extra guilty. And that's why the cops were like, yep, he totally did it. Extra smart on Dr. Shepard's part. And I would have gotten away with it too.
If it weren't for you meddling kids. If it weren't for you meddling detective and your vegetable marrows.
I know, I was literally about to say, if it weren't for you, Hercule Poirot, and your vegetable marrow. Which, let's talk about. The first time Dr. Shepard meets Hercule Poirot is because Poirot got annoyed about vegetable marrow and just chucked it over the fence, almost hitting Dr. Shepard in the head.
None vegetable marrows, man. They'll get you.
I think that was my favorite introduction to him so far. No, oh, this is my friend, Hercule Poirot, the detective. Nope. Just crazy rage man with vegetable marrow who might be a hairdresser.
It's probably a hairdresser. I mean, Carolyn's always right?
On a side note, what a boring retirement. No wonder he wanted to solve the mystery.
Yeah, vegetable marrows.
The whole time he's like, yes, I've retired. I want to grow the best vegetable marrow.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. That's such a shift. And it's like, it'd be one thing. It's like, yeah, you're into gardening and you could make that your whole life. But I mean, he's clearly not doing well. So I don't think he's that into gardening. It was just such a random. I think that's what hit me. It was just so random for Hercule to be like, I want to retire. I'm going to this random small town to grow vegetable marrow. Yep, that's how I'm gonna live out the rest of my life.
Yep.
And then we hit, of course, the cliche of detective goes on vacation / tries to retire and then stumbles into a mystery.
Oh, what? There's a mystery here? No way.
Very convenient, I must say.
Oh no, Nancy Drew, there's a mystery here? No way.
I feel like you can tell at the end, Hercule's like, yeah, I'm done with retirement. That was a fun attempt. And I mean, obviously, I think this is like the 5th in his series out of like 20. So obviously he goes back. But it was just so random and I loved it. And then that's how he met Dr. Shepard. That scene will be with me forever. And I just love it.
Vegetable marrows, man.
I think that is the one disservice the movies are doing to him. They make him too dignified. Hercule's a hot mess. It's great and I love it about him. Oh, goodness. But general thoughts. Yeah, all I wrote down was really solid mystery, even if you can guess the culprit. Because there are so many working parts. I felt most satisfied with the Miss Russell stuff and the Charles Kent. But there are small things like Ursula's first job being suspicious, and you find out her first job was from her sister, just so she would be able to be a servant and not be in a lower class. And then, well, Raymond wasn't that fun. But Ursula and Ralph being married was a twist. I did not see that coming. So there was enough there to be really interesting. And even to the end, I don't know why, I didn't think that he blackmailed Miss Ferris. And so I got to technically find him out to be the culprit for that. That makes me guessing the culprit a lot less cool. I feel like that was really dumb.
That's okay.
Oh, thank you.
So on the book, it's a solid mystery. It's a fun read. It's probably one of my favorites that she's written because it got me good my first time reading through it. Part of the reason I'm so disappointed you guessed who did it.
I'm sorry. It was you and the comments and everybody. Every time we posted anything Agatha Christie, murder of Roger Ackroyd, murder of Roger Ackroyd, murder of Roger Ackroyd. Oh my gosh, I forgot what my one question was, but one question for the author, and my question is vegetable marrow. Why? Of all things. And that's not a diss to gardening people or farmers or anything like that. It's just this man is not a gardener. It makes no sense. And I mean, that's obviously why he came back and he's like, yeah, that was not for me. And why he's chucking it over fences, and it's just patience. is not necessarily one of his virtues.
I guess I kind of want to know why she used this detective character instead of one of her other detective characters, or instead of making another character for solving the mystery. Because it's such a unique idea, and she doesn't do another book like this, so I'm curious as to why she decided it was going to be a Hercule mystery.
Oh, that's interesting.
Not saying that I'm mad that it is a Hercule mystery, but it seems like it would be a good standalone.
To add on to that, just her process to decide which detective in general. Because she has Hercule Poirot, and then she has Miss Marple, and then she has a couple other ones, not as big as those two, obviously, but they have several books themselves, and then there are a bunch of standalones.
Yeah, so why specifically Hercule?
That's a good question. I think that's better than my question. My question was only half a joke
Wahaha.
that I already made before I asked the question. Dang it. That's what I get for not rereading the outline. All right, rating. I'm giving this Getting a New Phone out of 10. I really enjoyed it. It was fun and new, and I hadn't read it before, so it gave me some thrills.
I give this a surprise party out of 10. You don't see it coming, and you think it's just going to be a normal, everyday murder, and then all of a sudden, BAM! Surprise!
Just one of your everyday murders. You know, your pedantic stuff.
Just an everyday. We read a lot of murder mystery.
We do. But it was just a funny statement. It's like, this is not your everyday murder, guys.
I mean, it's not, though.
It's not. I love that. I want it on a t-shirt. Would you read again? Yes.
I just did.
But would you do it again?
Yeah, probably.
To quote the Teletubbies.
Again.
Again.
That show, man.
I love that show and I stand by it. I don't know why, but my entire life I've been okay with liking the Teletubbies, even though I feel like Barney was tainted, because it was uncool to like Barney, but no one cared if you liked Teletubbies or Blue's Clues. Just Barney for some reason.
Low-key trying to hide the fact that I was a Barney kid growing up.
Oh, I was too, but like I said, there's some point in childhood it was uncool to like Barney. None of the other ones.
Do you remember the movie with the egg?
No, but I remember the movie of the camp out where they sang Kookaburra, and then that one kid gets lost and then it's scary randomly.
You don't remember the movie with the egg?
No, I just had the camping trip on VHS, I guess.
The movie with the egg is legendary.
Okay.
That will be forever in my memory forever.
Oh, goodness. How did this turn into Barney conversation at the end? We're here. It's okay.
I'm gonna find the movie with the egg. We're gonna watch the movie with the egg.
Okay. But have you read this book? What twist did you call ahead of time? Do you have any book recommendations? Tell us all about it in the comments below. If you like the video, hit like, and if you're enjoying yourself, hit subscribe for more.
Thank you for exploring the murder of Roger Ackroyd with us.
You can keep up to date with us by checking us out on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. And you can help support our podcast by checking us out on Patreon, where for just $1 a month, you can get access to our bonus episodes, where we look at the movie adaptations to some of your favorite books. This month, we're exploring Nancy Drew and the Hidden Staircase, and comparing it to its movie from 1939, 2007, and 2019.
Join us next time when we'll be reading The Vampire Knitting Club by Nancy Warren.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I'm Sam Reiner.
And I'm Lizzie Sawyer.
And we hope to see you and a friend here next time.